And welcome everyone to another installment of Orlando Magic Pod Squad. Dante Marcatelli, Jake Chapman, George Galante, as we get you ready for Game 6 and hopefully beyond. Is that not the goal, guys? We don't overlook Game 6, but obviously in the back of our minds, we want Game 7. We want round 2. We now know who the opponent will be here in the Boston Celtics. I don't think we don't play, so it doesn't affect how we look at it, right? So we know that this team isn't looking beyond Game 6. But man, this has been a lot of fun here right now. We thought it was important to do an emergency podcast here, get you ready for Game 6. Now that we know start times, Game 6 will be 6:30 for the pregame show and 7 o'clock tip. And hopefully, if we have a Game 7, it'll be an ABC exclusive. So no matter what, guys, it's a little bittersweet. We will not broadcast on Bally Sports Florida beyond tomorrow night. So we have a hard out. And you guys could go anywhere from tomorrow night to the end of June, right? So so it's a little bit of a different timeline here for Jake Chapman and George Galante, isn't it?
Well, you know, it was funny. We were on our, we have a text thread with myself and you and David and Jeff and Ty Eastham, the TV producer. And I think one of you guys said, it might've been JT, who this is shocking, by the way. If I have to go back and see if it was JT, he says, well, do we root for Miami here to make sure we get another? And then, we all just kind of, that thought lasted for, I think, about 90 seconds of like, no, we don't root for Miami. We don't ever root for Miami.
So there's no scenario where that would be the case.
There's no scenario. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting, we're going to have to win tomorrow night and then pack for, I don't know, 6 days, just in case, hopefully I need all the clothes in my suitcase and I don't just pack things for no reason. And I mean, the other thing was we're on another text thread with a couple other PR people around the league. And it's funny how when you get to the playoffs, no matter how it goes, you just want to keep going. Like you just want more and then you want more and then you win a game. And, like we probably got into this thing thinking, well, hell, it was a great season. Like we made the playoffs and then you win a game and you're like, yeah, now I want to win 2 games. And then you win a second game. You're like, well, shoot, now I want to win 3 and 4, now I just want to go to the finals. Like
exactly.
You constantly wanting more and more, but that's the beauty of it, right, guys? Like, this is what we do this for. This is what we're all in this to win. And this definitely beats the alternative of what we've been doing the last few years. This is awesome.
Well, you've checked so many boxes and you've had so much success this year. You won your first home playoff game regardless, first home playoff game in 13 years. That was huge. Fans were electric. I fully expect that same energy here going into tomorrow. But kind of on a personal note, you watch that Celtics series come to an end and it's the last broadcast for Mike Gorman, who did the telecast, right? So for me growing up, watching Mike Gorman and getting to call a game in the building with Mike Gorman this year was something surreal that I'll never forget. And kind of similarly, you have Jake Chapman, who grew up listening to Joe Tate, called Game 5 in Cleveland in the Joe Tate perch, right? Which has got to be a little bit surreal, Jake, when you think about it. I know it didn't go the way we wanted, but there's a scenario where you could go back and potentially call the Game 7 in Cleveland, Ohio, in the Joe Tate perch. I know it was just completely surreal. I still haven't fully wrapped my head around it in Boston, but it had to have been surreal for you calling that Game 5.
It was pretty spectacular. I called a game in that building before when I was with the Pistons, and that experience just being there and doing play-by-play in the building. I mean, Richfield Coliseum existed when I was a kid, but I grew up in Gund Arena and Quicken Loans and all the different iterations of that building, and it is a pretty spectacular home crowd when the Cavs are good, and that spot is one of the best radio broadcast locations in the league. You do have the speakers right above you, and the pyro comes. I mean, I think I'd singe my eyebrows.
And the engineer there, Stacy, she's great. She'll be the first to tell you. Well, if you like this spot, you can thank Joe Tate because this is what he wanted.
100%. He literally said this is going to be. He picked that out, and the road English broadcaster, me, the other day, we've got the best spot. Like I'm more at mid court than even Tim Elkhorn, the Cavs radio play-by-play guy. Now he and Jim Jones are a little bit off center, and then the Spanish broadcasters, the home Spanish broadcasters are behind me. So I just kind of waltzed right in, and Stacy took care of me. She got me a cup of coffee. I felt like I was king of the castle, for a little bit there. But no, it was.
By the way, you mentioned Jim Jones. Jim Jones, who longtime NBA player, won a championship in 1980 with the Los Angeles Lakers. Super nice, always accommodates me. But every time I leave a conversation, I think, boy, there isn't anyone that guy wants to talk to less than me. With all the things, with all the things that he's done, but he's super nice. He's super accommodating.
I'll say
Do you
something
think
real
that's
fast.
Do you think that's exclusive to Jim Jones, though, Dante? Really? I mean, you think?
If we're being honest, you can open that up to a lot of people. You can
Maybe a youth thing, because I was going to say he was very accommodating with his time when Terrence Ross introduced himself and they chatted before one of the games in Orlando. No, he's fantastic. It was an awesome experience. I mean, the only thing missing was from Franz converting that layup at the end of the game, and that would have made it even more epic. But sometimes you got to appreciate the moment rather than the result, and that's I left the arena. What day is it? What day was it? Tuesday night going. Boy, it came out on the wrong end of the stick, but that was a special basketball game, period, and just an experience for me as a kid growing up in Cleveland that I certainly will never forget.
First trip for a guy with a 1-year-old, George, and his head spinning. Imagine that.
Shocker.
Right?
Shocker.
Welcome to life on the road. People think it's and it is fun. Obviously, it's incredible, but it does. You do have certain points where you're like, okay, where are we? What day of the week is it? What city are we in? Listen, guys, I think at the end of the day, as frustrating as that was, I think you're watching that, and in the back of your mind, you're thinking you're keeping it close. You can't seem to get separation. Big offensive rebounds down the stretch that led to a Marcus Morris 3, a Max Strus 3. Self-inflicted things that you look at it now and say, if we can correct these self-inflicted things, we can win on the road. I think as disappointing and heartbreaking as it was to win that game, I think you leave thinking, obviously you have to take care of game 6. Nobody looks past game 6. But I think there was a feeling, was there not, George, that if there is a scenario where you have a game 7, we can win there. We feel like we now know what it's going to take. Value of every possession, which we've heard since the start of the season. But I think all of that sunk in, and at least maybe there's a somewhat quiet confidence that if we go to a game 7, we might be able to pull that out.
Yeah, I mean, I let's be honest. You don't want to be on this end of a 3-2 deficit. Like you don't want to go into the game 6 knowing, well, hell, we have to win this or our season's over. You don't want that scenario. There was definitely a feeling in the locker room of, and I think Josh Robbins actually had a story today in the Athletic or last night that, we let that one slip away. And we just hope that we can overcome it and get another opportunity, in game 7. And let's be honest, like anything can happen in a game 7.
Totally.
Anything can happen. It's a winner take all. Obviously you would like to have home court. We don't have home court. There are lots of things, no matter how this plays out for the Magic, there are going to be a lot of great lessons that they can take moving forward. Paolo, Franz, Jalen, Cole, all of these guys, Wendell, all of these guys that are young, this is their first taste of it. Even going back to how they can look at the regular season that leads up to the playoffs. Hey, we win 1 more game or 2 more games, we have home court, and we are going to be in the situation where we can hold serve and know that, the home court is in our advantage. So there's just lots of different elements to this, but yeah, I think there's definitely, we knew going into the series that game 1 in their place was going to be tough, only because our guys have not been in it before. That you can say all that you want about how to prepare for the playoffs, and there's nothing that can replicate actually being there. I look back to when we were in 2009, when we were in the finals, and I could tell the minute the lights went on that we were going to get dump trucked in that first game, only because that whole team had been through all of that before, and our guys had not, and it just is a completely different animal. So you take it down to a lesser degree. Game 1 was going to be hard for us, because you can't tell somebody, you can't tell Paolo, hey, listen, like this is how the crowd's going to be. And you can't tell Franz, well, this is how the referees are going to call the game. They have to experience this stuff first. And now that we've gotten that taste, and now that we know what that looks like, I think if we can somehow, like, let's just say too, Game 6 is no guarantee on Friday night.
Absolutely not.
Now, Cleveland these are two really evenly matched teams
Right.
that are going at it, that are exchanging blows. And listen, let's hope we have the same result. I hope nobody thinks that just because we're at home now for game 6 that
Right.
well, that's an automatic dub and we're going back. That is not the way this is, because Cleveland is feeling the same way. Well, now we've been to Orlando twice in the playoffs, and we know how that crowd's going to be. Like,
right.
we have to take it up another level. Every time you get out there, you have to continue to take it to a different level. So let's hope we can win game 6. And then, yeah, I'll take a toss up in game 7. Let's just see how that thing plays out. We're just as good as they are. So let's just see how it plays out.
And it's going to be an electric atmosphere. We knew it would be for games 3 and 4. And you're going to have some VIPs, right? We got Rashard Lewis is going to be in the house here tomorrow night, which is going to be awesome. We've got some other people sitting courtside.
Is he playing?
Rashard Lewis. Rashard Lewis is not. He's not playing.
I asked him if he wants to give us like 10 minutes. He said he could only give us 5.
Depending on what happens with Gary Harris, we might need him. So we don't know.
Right.
Questionable for Gary Harris, questionable for Jared Allen. We don't know where they're going to go. So there's some things that are up in the air. If Gary doesn't play, where will they go as far as starting? But I think at the end of the day, so now you can't replicate postseason and the pressure and all that. You can't replicate how you're going to feel in an elimination game. And now you're going to have that experience going into an elimination game. And potentially, if you win that, you're going to have the experience of a game 7. I mean, you could have 2 huge things that you could check off the list going into this thing. Jake, I want to get to you here in just a second, because I want to get your thoughts on how we talked about it on Magic Drive Time. I want to get your thoughts on how do we get Paolo and Franz going in the same game? We've had it multiple times this year, right? I think you're about 15 and 4, something like that, when they both get 20 in a game during the regular season, right? You've had a lot of success when they both done that in the same game in the regular season. We got to get them going on the same page, but we'll get both of your thoughts on this. George, I've seen every playoff game since 1998 with the Orlando Magic, and you go back earlier than that, and I didn't see the Shaq and Penny playoff performances, but Paolo in game 5 is right there. As far as any Magic playoff performance, Franz Wagner was up there in game 4 here in Orlando, and Paolo Banchero was equally as special in any playoff performance that I've seen, with those 39 points, keeping us in that game in game 5 in Cleveland.
Yeah, he was, you could tell, I don't know. I felt like you could tell right after the first 3. He hit that first 3 in the corner, and, I'm sitting there by myself at center court with the Cleveland Stats crew and fans next to me on the left, and I just went, oh boy, like, here we go. Like, you can tell right away.
Look at his eye.
Yeah, well, you can tell right away when that guy has it going and has a different look. You knew he was going to do something special. Does he want a couple of those last possessions back? Probably. But now going back and looking at the the last 2, which, by the way, can we talk about that for a second too? Can we just eliminate the NBA last 2-minute report, because all it does is piss people off?
Yeah,
you thought there was a foul on the play where he had that awkward, he went up for a pull-up jumper, and it looked awkward. Then all of a sudden he had to switch to the left, and you're kind of like, well, that's weird. Why is he shooting a left-hand jumper with a minute to go? We're down 2. Well, it's because he got fouled. And so,
I know. It's so frustrating.
It's just frustrating to see that. And, did he want the last couple of possessions back? Probably so. But I have no problem with Paolo pulling up and I think the guy was feeling it. He had 16 points in the 4th quarter alone. He put us on his back. He was an absolute menace out there, an absolute menace, and they had no answer for him.
Well, and Jake, we talked about this on Drive Time too, because, also, if you're going to get rid of that narrative in the last 2-minute report, let's get rid of the narrative that we should have called a timeout. That's what we've done all year, is just
no doubt.
Guy gets the rebound and go. And it was Franz just made the basket the play before that to tie the game. So you have no problem with Franz or Paolo figuring it out in the last play of a game.
And I think it speaks to what George was talking about. Like, we have to go through all of these things, right? Like Paolo is going to execute better in those absolute clutch moments moving forward, because of the failures that we saw the other night. And again, like, if you want to go through and nitpick and question his shot selection, like, then get out. Then I have no time for you. The guy had 39 points. It was he's and I was just looking at numbers. I mean, he's being asked to do so much right now, and that's something that we need to see tomorrow night. is somebody's got to take a little bit of the burden off of him as far as creation and just, facilitating the offense goes. His usage percentage is up over 30. He's doing Luka things. The ball is in his hands so much. And obviously, he's option A, B, and C when he's got it going like he did on Tuesday night. But all of these things, it's experience. Nobody pounces on every opportunity they're given immediately on their way to the NBA Finals and an NBA Finals MVP. So a little proper perspective, I think, is in order. And 2 out of the last 3 games, he's put on performances that rank right up there with all the best postseason performances we've ever seen in the guys in year 2.
Well, I think go ahead, Joe.
The other thing I was going to say real quick though is, and people can criticize Franz also for attacking the rim and doing what he did. If you look 2 possessions before that, or the possession before that, he did the same exact thing and scored. You have to also get, there's 5 guys on the other side of the floor too that are playing just as hard and can make plays too. Mobley made a great play. Evan Mobley made a tremendous block, and that's what he's out there to do. So crap happens sometimes, right, guys? Right. I mean, it's not, if we could just roll it out, we'd be 82-0 and we'd have 28 rings. Like, there are things that happen on the other side of the floor too. You can dissect it and nitpick all you want. Like Jake said, it was a great basketball game. Somebody was going to have to lose. Unfortunately, it was the Magic. And let's just see if we can bounce back for game 6.
To me, the game was lost on those offensive rebounds. Because those are self-inflicted wounds that you can correct. You can correct. It's not the 2-minute report. It's not the block by Evan Mobley. It's you played unbelievable defense and they got a long rebound. Twice it ended up in a Marcus Morris 3 and once in a Max Strus 3. You eliminate those 3, you win going away. And so I think it's remarkable what you've done to put yourself in that position. So now you understand the value of every single possession. And I think, guys, what we have to figure out is, you knew Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland were going to come out firing. There was so much pressure up there on them. Darius Garland said it. I haven't played well yet in this series. I got to take more shots. He did 17 points in the first quarter. And that doesn't mean we have to oblige him and let him get 17. We have to do a little bit better job defensively. And you knew Donovan Mitchell, but it did not have an efficient game. He was a team worst -11 in that basketball game. He was 9 of 23 from the floor with 4 turnovers. He's capable of having a big night. The 1 3 that he hit all game was huge. And he went to the free throw line. He hit 9 out of 10 free throws all in the fourth quarter. Didn't attempt a free throw until the fourth quarter. So you got to clean that up. There's some bad fouls down the stretch too that you got to clean up. So there's all those things that you have to figure out. But whereas they got Garland and Mitchell to play well together, we have not yet in the postseason been able to get Franz and Paolo on the same page together in the same game. They've both had monster performances on their own, but it seems to me like Cleveland is content. Okay, if one guy's got to go, we're just going to load up on the other guy. And to me, is that not where guys got to make shots? You got to have other guys have got to step up, especially in Cleveland. Jalen Suggs is 1 for 15 from 3 in Cleveland.
That's probably not going to get it done, right?
That's not going to get done. Cole Anthony's made 1 field goal in Cleveland. Like, guys that have been your scorers all season long, we need that in Cleveland, but we also need it tomorrow night for game 6. Does that not help kind of get those guys going if someone can step up and take some of the pressure off and knock down shots?
I think that's the big key, because you think about Franz's big performance in game 4, and obviously the 37-10 third quarter was just an avalanche. But he got to the free throw line. He was 6 of 7, I believe, if I recall, in that game. And he was knocking, I think he made 2 out of 3 3-point attempts, which for Franz, it's been a very, very rocky perimeter shooting season. Like all year, it just hasn't really clicked. We know he's better than that. He's going to bounce back next season for sure. And maybe he'll bounce back tomorrow night as far as shooting from the perimeter goes. But that's, to me, what Cleveland's doing, right? They're packing the paint. When they do have Allen in there, they've got 2 guys who can protect the rim just about as well as anybody. Mobley proved in game 5 he's good enough to handle. I don't know if he can do it for 82 games, be the 5 and bang like that. But he is a pretty special defender, and they've got some size elsewhere as well. So, we've got these 2 6'10" supersized wings who are at their best when they're attacking the basket and creating inside-out action for their teammates. And with Paolo, he's at his best when he's doing what he's doing the other night, which is just raising up and knocking down long 2s and 3s over whatever defender you want to trot out there at him. The guy's Okoro was glued to his hip all night, and it didn't matter. It's just I know we already discussed that. That's the key.
But it
Dante,
was
is-
interesting. I was sitting next to Dennis Scott, and Dennis Scott was like in awe of Paolo. He goes, that's what big dogs do. He goes, you're
Yeah.
watching a guy do what big dogs do. He goes, when he's got Mobley, he goes around him, he gets by him. When he's got Okoro, when he's got Levert, he just goes over the top of him. He said he's not even seeing whoever's in front of him. And that we know, regardless of how this series goes, guys, we know we've got a dude, and a dude that's not going to shy away from the pressure of the postseason.
I like, so Q called him a dude game 1 of his NBA career to you, and then you got 3D calling him a big dog the other night. I don't know which one I like better. He is a dude, but he was a big dog the other night, and he was barking. No, we need to space the floor. We need to loosen the defense a little bit, and that to me is the way that you get Paulo and Franz kind of clicking together. Is their teammates need to help them out. And knock down some shots from the perimeter. It'd be great if we could do it early. And that, going back to the Paolo performance, after the first 3, George, I think you said, like, you sort of could see it in his eye, or it's because he started 0 for 4, 0 for 5 in just about every game, every other game of the series, right? And so if he starts out hitting from the perimeter, they're going to have to close out on him, and then he can do basically whatever he wants. Getting Franz going would be excellent, but that takes just about everybody else. I think Franz, when we get out in transition, when we're forcing turnovers, offensive rebounds, all of those things that we need to do as a team to manufacture more possessions and to kind of make up for the fact that we're not the best shooting team in the world I think that's where Franz ends up benefiting. So it's on Wendell, it's on Markelle when he's in the game, moving without the basketball. We just got to facilitate the half court offense a little bit better. And Franz typically is the benefit, the benefactor after all that happens.
I think they're going to have similar success in the same game here going into game 6, because I think they know that. But guys, I think whereas we feel some confidence having gone into Cleveland because we know what to expect after games 1 and 2, I think they're going to have the same thing coming down here. They now know what to expect with our crowd, how energized we are. I think there's things that they know they can clean up, and I think our role players thrive in this environment, feeding off the crowd. I think they know that. I think they'll be more in tune to the likes of the Mo Wagners and Jonathan Isaacs and Cole Anthonys. And not to say that those guys won't have big games, but I think they're going to be more of a focal point than they were going into games 3 and 4. But I think one thing that jumps off the page, I think you've been down. It might be game 4 might be the only game in this series where you weren't down double figures in the first quarter. Yeah, game 5 was the only game you scored first. Wendell had a lay-in. It's the only time you've had the first basket of the game. If you could summon any kind of a decent start here in game 6, I think it would be critical. And I think that doesn't mean you win the game if you get up by 10 in the first quarter. But man, you give yourself a shot, because every single game in this series from quarter 2 on, you've seemed to figure something out or settle down. Can you not get down by 10 in the first quarter here tomorrow night? I think would be huge.
Well, I think Jamal addressed that too post game in game 5. He said it multiple times. He was like, well, we could not be down 10 after 1. Like,
right.
to constantly have to dig out of a hole, like, it's hard. It makes it hard on yourself. So yeah, I would like to see what happens if we can somehow punch them in the mouth first. We've been smacked each game, 5 games, even in game 4, when you're saying we weren't down 10, I think we were down 7. I think we were down 7.
We were down 10.
Like,
I'm looking it up now. So we were. So in every single game in this series, you've been down double digits in the first quarter.
It does make it tough to dig out of a hole, constantly dig out of a hole. Now, that's been a strength of the Magic all season, with that, when that second unit comes in, they've had the ability to either, bring us back into a ball game or extend a lead. I mean, that's a big reason for our success. So it would be nice to see how it looks on the other foot. If we were somehow able to, they haven't had to do that yet. They haven't had to climb out of a hole, and every time they've been in a hole, the hole has gotten deeper. So it would be nice to see what would happen if we can open the game with a 12-4 run on Friday night, or hopefully a game 7. Like, let's see how they react if we can punch them in the mouth first.
I've been thinking about this so much in this series that I have it stenciled into my brain. We were 27-11 in the regular season when we scored first. 27-11 in the regular season when we scored first. It's the dumbest stat, obviously, scoring. But I almost stopped the broadcast the other day when Wendell scored the first bucket in game 5. It was a monumental moment. No, and it's a little confusing too, because when you look at like the net rating numbers and all of that stuff, it's not like the starters are getting blown out. You know, like when over the course of the game, the starters' minutes aren't killing you, obviously. Like Paulo's carried us for much of the series. He's been fantastic. The turnovers are a little bit of an issue. Franz had his game. You know, Jalen's had big games, knocking down threes at times, and we know what he's doing on the defensive end. So it's just a matter of like the first 6 minutes of executing. And I'll go back to game 5. I mean, I thought you go back, you clean up some things, make a few more free throws, the turnovers. You know, there's obviously just, I thought Darius Garland's 17-point first quarter was the difference in that game. I mean, he was just ripping us off the dribble, and I'm going, this isn't Magic basketball. Like, right. And if he wasn't scoring himself, then both he and Mitchell were getting into the lane and creating and dumping off to Mobley, and that happened, you know, much of the night. But when you know, Garland came into that game confidence completely shot, you have to think, right? Like I even said on the broadcast, I don't know if he's been listening to Sports Talk Radio, but this guy very clearly has a point to prove, because you know, there's so many questions in Cleveland, and granted it's the fans and not the actual people that matter. That sounded a little bit harsh, but you know, everybody's questioning whether or not those guys can play together, and I think those guys are good enough. And they went out there and kind of tried to prove a point. Darius Garland's a really good player, but we had done a great job with him up to that point. And all of a sudden he came out and just kind of ripped us. So I don't think it's a mentality thing. I think it's just an execution type of thing. But for whatever reason, like we've got to ride that wave tomorrow night. And yeah, like I don't want to be greedy. A 6-point first quarter lead, I'll take. That'd
right.
be fine. How about a couple buckets?
Well, and I think, listen, I saw, you could see Gary Harris tweak the hamstring early in the game, and I think that led to Darius Garland having the game that he had. Gary tried to gut it out and tried to play, and then he had to come out there in that first quarter, and then came back in the second half, tried to finish the game and just couldn't. So you hope Gary's able to go here tomorrow for game 6, but even if he does, is that thing 100% right? You just have no idea. It's the same with Jared Allen. You don't know if if he's able to go and play for Cleveland, he's sore, right? You got a rib contusion, and he could be limited in some way. So you have to figure something out for Garland, because if you don't have Gary Harris, and if they do have Jared Allen, you have a decision to make if your replacement for Gary is going to be a big, because you got to contend with Jared Allen, or if you're going to go small. So you've kind of got some decision. Markelle Fultz has put himself in a great position that he could be the guy to step in. He's had a great postseason, guys. You know, for a guy that struggled at times, and he'll be the first one to tell you, you know, just trying to find a rhythm, he's done it here in the postseason and really the last week of the regular season. He looks very comfortable out there. And if that's a guy that you turn to that's going to have to play bigger minutes and going to have to start, I think he's ready. And I think he'd be ready for that challenge. You could go big with Jonathan Isaac. I mean, you could go Anthony Black. Could be a guy that gets postseason experience. I think we don't know what that's going to be, and hopefully Gary's able to play, but you've got options if you're Jamal Mosley. And this Cavs team, you know, you've won the battle of the bench in all 5 games. You know, they got a huge lift from Marcus Morris, and that helped them win the game. They're not as deep as you. The Magic have options, but you do have to figure that out if you don't have Gary.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Gary is limited or can't play at all in game 6, which way you go. You beat me to the punch. I was going to say Markelle Fultz is a really big X factor for us. I thought he was excellent. I was kind of surprised he didn't play more, but he's given you everything he's had these first 5 games. And you're right, Dante. Like even the last few games of the regular season, something flipped for him, and I'm not really sure what it was, and I'm not really sure why it took so long, but it's definitely there. He was really steady. He was a great facilitator. I thought he played great defense too when he was in there against Garland and Mitchell. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens come Friday night. I'm really looking forward to it. Again, no matter how this ends up playing out, this has been a really, really good
absolutely
couple of weeks here for the Magic, both in the short term and in the long term.
And real quick, just think about where we were.
Out, but go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to say, just think about game 82, that Milwaukee game.
Yes.
How close we were to a play-in, right? And so you win that game, and now we talk about all the experience that we're gaining right now. You were this close to, you know, a 1 and done, or a 2 and done potentially. And so I think you got to think about the building blocks and how important all of these experiences have been, and how close it is, how easily it could have gone the other way if you didn't deliver in the clutch. So like tomorrow night, it's an elimination game. We haven't dealt with that, but we've dealt with a high stakes game in our building, certainly. So I don't think they'll be scared of the moment for sure.
And
Well,
I
two
know,
things,
sorry, go ahead.
well, two things real quick. I think I don't know about you guys, but I've got in the back of my head, just because we've seen it so many times. We're doing such a good job on Donovan Mitchell, but doesn't he have to have like a 46-point game where he's 20,
Yeah,
25?
that's what I'm
Like,
scared of.
isn't that, but maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe they've done such a good job. He's such a good player, and
He's a minus 10 net rating. He is a
I
minus
know.
10.
But it feels
It's
like
crazy.
that's in there somewhere, and you can survive even if he does. You just have to eliminate everybody else. But it feels like a big game is coming, but maybe not. Give them credit. They have done such a great defensive job on Donovan Mitchell.
He's an all-world player, guys. Like
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it scares me every time that guy touches the ball. It scares me. It's
It's
terrifying
terrifying.
because I think he can go off. Listen, he can do what Paolo did at any minute.
At any minute.
Nothing. We had talked at dinner the other night. Like nothing will surprise me tomorrow night in Game 6. It wouldn't surprise me if we blow them out. It wouldn't surprise me if the Cavs blew us out. It wouldn't surprise me if it goes down to the buzzer. Like these two teams are just so evenly matched with stars on both sides. Like that. This is what the playoffs are all about. Like this is it. Like this is what the playoffs are. This is what they bring to you. It's awesome. Like it's just awesome. But can we, before we get off here, I don't know if we're close to done. Can we talk about the key? I know the players have talked about it and Coach Mosley's talked about it. The fans at Kia Center,
oh my gosh,
have been unbelievable. Those two games, and we were all both around for the old building, and I have a special place in my heart for the old building, which was louder. It was a louder building, just the aesthetics of it, the fans being right on top of the court. I didn't think the Kia Center was capable of being as loud as it's been. I really didn't. I just thought it was
just acoustically
correct.
correct.
Just everything, the way the fans are separated. Those two games 3 and 4, were easily the loudest I had heard it in that building.
Yes.
Since we cut the ribbon, and it was unbelievable.
Agreed.
And I know they're going to do the same on Friday night, and I can't wait to be in there for it. It's just been awesome to see. The players are all feeding off of it. You know, there may be people out there that think it's just media speak and whatever else. No, like when the lights are off and the cameras are off, I've had multiple guys come up to me and say, "Holy cow, I didn't know this place could be like this." And it's definitely given them some juice, and they are pumped. And I can't wait to see what we bring to the table on Friday night from a fan's perspective.
Well, you went there. That was going to be the last thing I was going to say was how great the fans have been and how fun this is for them. 13 years since you won a home playoff game, so you've at least checked that box, right? So you've done that. You brought some success back. We know how this city rallies, and we've seen how they've rallied the last couple of years, right? Even when you've struggled and haven't been a playoff team, we've seen a change in the crowd and their excitement level and understanding what's brewing here in Central Florida. So that was a part of it. But what I think is also fun for fans, guys, is the rumors. I mean, how much fun is this? We know, the latest name is Paul George. We're smart enough to know this front office doesn't leak anything, right? So all these any player that's going to be rumored to the Orlando Magic is just somebody throwing a name out there, right? So we know that. We're smart enough to know that. But the fun thing about when you're competitive and you're a playoff team is guys are linked to you. And I think what's fun is whether there's any validity to it or not, I think what a lot of Magic fans are having fun with now is, one, we're playing basketball games in May, and two, very quickly, if not already now, this is a free agent destination. And I think you're going to start seeing national people try to connect dots because we all know we have to add a piece or two to be a title contender. And I think that part is fun for fans. You're now back in that conversation, which is pretty cool.
Even if it's an agent that's throwing it out there and creating it out of thin air, if you're not relevant and if there's no chance, it doesn't work.
Exactly.
You can't be a bargaining chip.
Right. These guys aren't linked to teams that are winning 22 games. These guys are linked to teams that you feel might be a year or two away. That's what makes the conversation fun.
Yeah, there's not a whole bunch of oh yeah, he's interested in Phoenix or Detroit. Like that's typically not being thrown out there. It's fun, and like I think I caution fans, like, let's not think about the offseason just yet. Let's focus in on game 6 and 7. But the bottom line is, like, that that sort of news cycle is nonstop, and when you're relevant, I mean, not just are we talking about having money that you could spend and being a championship contending team. The crowd matters. Like, that stuff matters. Like, guys want to come to a place that's sort of energized. And yeah, it feels good to be in those conversations again, period.
And I think if you're a prospective free agent, you're looking and saying they've got something. There's something brewing there.
Exactly.
We saw it when we had Dwight, and free agents very quickly realized, I want to be a part of that. And I think that's back. I think people are realizing, hey, if they determine they need somebody, maybe I could be a piece. And I think you're going to start seeing some names, which will be fun conversation. I don't think it's any secret I dislike the Miami Heat with the passion of 1,000 suns. So I think to see them get eliminated last night, I have no problem with that, right? Did any of you guys have any?
I knew you guys didn't need it on the thread. Are we rooting for the Heat?
I know. You go back on the thread. I never weighed in and said yes.
Come
we
on,
want Miami to
you
win.
knew that wasn't the case. Also, too, like, did you guys like I know everybody was always kind of talks about when opposing fans in the past have come in here and, like, quote unquote taken our building over, and did you like what happened in Philadelphia the other day? And I mean, listen, if it can happen there, then it can probably happen anywhere.
They can exactly right. It can happen anywhere. But I think that's to me, that's more of a testament to Knicks fans. I mean, that has been a great fan base. As annoying as they are, and as much as we don't like them filling up our building, they did it in Philly during a playoff game. And Philly fan is an unbelievable fan.
Right.
For as obnoxious as Knicks fans are, they're great fans. They're great fans. And if that can happen there in Philadelphia, it can happen anywhere. That is about as fun a series as there is.
I can tell you where it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in the Kia Center on Friday night.
You're
that place
right.
is going to be electric, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait for 24 hours from now when that building gets turned up.
And if you don't have a ticket, you can still come down and you can watch it. You can be a part of Fan Fest, which starts at 5, and you can go to orlandomagic.com/playoffs, and you can get a free ticket, and you can watch the game on the big screen TV on Church Street, right outside Kia Center, and hopefully celebrate with all Magic fans as they leave for Game 6. You don't have a Game 7 if you don't win Game 6. That's what
gotta get Game 6, boys.
Got to get Game 6. That's what it's all about. And this has been fun for us. I don't want to say I forgot what the playoffs were like, but this has been a lot of fun to come back in this energy, and you fans are going to make the difference, hopefully, tomorrow in Game 6. That'll do it for this installment of Magic Pod Squad. We'll have one more, regardless. We'll have one at the end of the season, or we'll have one to preview the Magic and Celtics. We'll see. But we'll talk to you soon, hopefully, on Magic Pod Squad.